Golden child brother couldn't bear that. I'm doing better in life, so he spray painted my car and thought I wouldn't do anything, but I posted the video online, and now he's in trouble. I 30F have a younger brother, Jackson, 26 meters, and we do not get along, never will. I guess that's why he went out of his way to try and cause trouble for me, but this time, unfortunately, it backfired on him. Part of the credit for that would go to my parents, who always treated him differently as a young kid. It was very confusing for me because as long as it was just me, my parents dude on me. But as soon as my brother was born, I was pushed to the sidelines, and there was nothing that I could do to bring them back to me, and believe me, I tried really hard to win them over, but never had any luck. After Jackson was born, I took part in sports, stayed ahead academically, danced and sang and acted in school plays, but nothing impressed my parents enough to pay attention to me. It was all about Jackson, which was weird because he didn't seem to be exceptionally talented at anything to me. Had he been a child prodigy, I might have even forgiven my parents for the kind of treatment I received, but he was a bratty and spoiled kid who got so used to the attention that he just couldn't stand it when anyone else was receiving it. Every time I came home with good news from school, he would find some way to make the day about him, and my parents let him get away with it as well. It was like they were blind when it came to him, and they proved me right on my 18th birthday. When I turned 18, my parents threw me a party, but in the middle of it, we received word from the cops that my brother had apparently decided to get caught while drinking with a couple of his friends. Here's the deal: all of his other friends had made a run for it, but he was the only one who had been caught, and I knew that it was on purpose. He wanted to get caught so they would become all about him, and my parents would be concerned. The worst part is that he didn't even get into trouble for it. The cops just let him off with a warning because my dad is on the force, and once my parents had brought him back home, they just reprimanded him for a bit, but they didn't even punish him by grounding him or whatever, so he totally got away with ruining my party, and it wasn't even the last time that something like this happened. At 21, when I got my first job, he decided to come home with his girlfriend and told our parents that he was engaged to her, so instead of celebrating my job, we started to celebrate his engagement, and once again the spotlight was stolen from me, and I think for me personally that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I got into a huge fight with my brother and my parents that day, and instead of trying to understand me, they told me that I was being oversensitive and dramatic, and after that I never spoke to them again. My parents tried to reach out to me several times afterward, but it has been 9 years and I still haven't spoken to them because I know that they still love my brother a lot more than they loved me. Jackson has never tried to reach out to me, and from what I know, he broke off the engagement with that girl a couple of weeks after I cut them out of my life, so all that really was just to hog the limelight, so I didn't get any attention. Anyway, I'm glad that he did not try and reach out because he's a horrible human being, and I wouldn't want anything to do with him. For 9 years we haven't spoken, but I guess he knows what I've been up to. We have all seen each other at family events and stuff, and I think my family knows that I'm doing well for myself. I drive a pretty nice car, and I always try to dress my best since I don't have any family of my own, and I don't plan on having one anytime soon either. All my money is spent on myself. I can afford this because I'm running my own company, and it's pretty thrilling since that's what I always wanted to do. 2 years ago, when my business started taking off, I decided to buy a new house and moved out of the apartment that I had been living in ever since I got my first job. I had told all my relatives not to give out my address to my family Especially not to my brother, but somehow he was able to find out about it, and 6 days ago he showed up in the evening and decided to vandalize my car. I had just come back home from work and I was about to leave for a party again, so I hadn't bothered to park my car in the garage, and it was still out in the driveway. When I came back outside to drive to the party, I saw that somebody had spray painted my car with blood red paint, and they had said some pretty mean stuff. The sides of the car had been spray painted with a bunch of cuss words, but that did not bother me as much as what had been spray painted on the windshield. You don't deserve any of this. I was shocked for a few minutes, trying to just process what I was seeing, and I was about to call the cops when I realized that if this was the handiwork of my brother, then there was simply no point in doing so, because if I got the cops to report, my brother and my dad would just squash the entire case and he would be let off with just a warning. Again, after I had processed what I had seen, I realized that the handwriting belonged to my brother, and just to be sure I checked the security footage as well. He had been wearing a hoodie, but I could just tell that it was him since he hadn't been careful enough, and I had caught a bit of his face on the cameras. When I realized that it was him, I knew that there was no point in calling the cops, because my dad would deal with it and he would get away with everything. I'm speaking from experience, not just for my 18th birthday, but also because of all the gossip that I've heard about my brother from a couple of relatives apparently taking advantage of my dad's connections. Has become a pretty common thing for him to be honest. I had family a few days back and he's not really dealing well with it emotionally, since he hasn't really grown up from when we were kids, and also because he doesn't really have anything going on for himself, and partying every weekend isn't really something worth bragging about anymore, and maybe that's why he felt like he had to go out of his way to vandalize my car and let me know that I don't deserve any of this, even though I do. It might sound mean what I'm about to say, but he also deserves what he is going through right now. He was never very hard-working or dedicated to anything. He just expected things to work out for him, and my parents always made it happen, so it isn't surprising that he's turned out like this. So when I saw that footage, I knew that there was no point in taking it to the cops, because my dad would definitely not allow Jackson to get in any sort of trouble, but I was not about to let him get away with it, since I had never even spoken to them for 9 years. But he had still decided to try and get on my nerves. After some brainstorming, I came up with a brilliant idea of posting the video on social media and leaving everyone else to deal with him. I took a bunch of photos of whatever was written on my car and posted it along with a video claiming that it was my brother who had done it, and I was sure of it. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to the cops with this information, because my dad, who had spent a lifetime on the force, was going to make sure that he covered all of this up, just so his darling baby did not get into trouble. Within a couple of hours, the comments started pouring in, and I had made sure to unblock my family just so they would be able to see this post. When Jackson inevitably texted me to take that post down, I just told him that I wasn't going to do that, and he couldn't even make me, because if he took this up legally, he would have to prove that it was actually not him in the video, and that would require this situation to go to court, and it definitely is him in the video. So we were at a stalemate, but to be honest, he had more to lose than I did, because even though he had vandalized my car and I would have to pay for it to get repainted, it really wasn't a big deal for me, because I was earning enough to be able to afford it. On the other hand, if he decided to take this situation up legally in order to get me to take my post down, then he would have to try and prove that it was not him, and he had more, because it was actually proven that it was definitely him in the video. He would be screwed, and it wasn't just about him. Even my father and whoever had been helping him out, they would also get into trouble. I'm pretty sure that he hadn't seen this coming. He had probably just expected me to go to the cops and have them deal with it, and then he would have just spoken to our dad and gotten away with all of this scot-free. Unfortunately, I know my family, and he picked a fight with the wrong person this time, so after I sent the text to him, he did not even reply for a couple of days because he did not have anything to say. The post stayed up, and pretty much everyone that we know, my friends, our family members, and even our family friends had seen that post. Finally, 2 days ago, he reached out to me once again and said that he was ready to cough up the money required for the paint job, but he just wanted me to take that post down. But for me, it was obviously not about the money, so I told him that I didn't care about the money. I wanted him to acknowledge what he had done and post a public apology, and only then would I consider taking the post down. At that point, he started pleading with me and said that he was ready to apologize in person or however else I wanted, but just not publicly, because that would involve having to accept the fact that he had done something like this, and it would put everything at risk for him, and claim that he would lose all his clients. I don't know what client he's talking about, because I don't think he has a business bus right now, but I don't care either way. So far, he had just been denying all of it whenever anyone was approaching him to ask about it, but accepting it was just going to make him look bad. But I didn't really care. I told him that this was what I wanted, and he could either do it or that post would stay up. It was as simple as that for me. And he sent me a couple of more messages after I told him that I was not ready to negotiate, trying to reason with me, but I didn't even bother to reply. A few hours after that, my father called me up and told me that the post that I had made was not just reflecting badly on my brother, but also on him, and he had dedicated his life to his career, so he couldn't allow something like this to derail it. He requested me to take that post down, and yet again I had to disappoint another person by declining, because if he had just not risked at all to protect my brother, maybe I wouldn't have anything to say against him in my post in the first place. Now his reputation was at stake, but instead of trying to convince Jackson to apologize to me publicly, my parents started yelling at me on the phone. They said that I was being ridiculous and that my success had gone to my head, since I thought that I could just do whatever I wanted and get away with it. I was about to hang up on them as soon as they started yelling at me, but then my mother started crying and said that she had never expected me to behave like this. She acknowledged the fact that Jackson and I had been treated differently as kids, but she and my father had tried to contact me several times throughout the past 9 years, and yet I had never responded, so it wasn't fair for me to act like they were the villains here, even though they had tried to make amends with me a lot of times. Even now, I had no idea that they had apparently cut ties with Jackson soon after I made that post, and he told them the truth, that it was indeed him. The only reason they were even speaking with him right now was because they had to get me to take that post down, but apart from that, they had no contact. They told me that they really had changed as people, but now by not taking the post down, I was ruining my dad's reputation as well without even giving him a chance to prove that he had changed. And now I'm kind of confused because I really don't want to take that post down. At the same time, I don't understand what to do with the situation regarding my parents, so I'd for not wanting to take down a Facebook post against my brother, even though it's ruining my dad's reputation. Update 1. Hello. So a couple of things before I move on to the update. The first Being that my dad has retired Reed from the force, he just crossed 55 recently and announced his retirement around the same time, even though it's not exactly mandatory for him right now, but he's been having a lot of problems with his heart, so he decided to take an early retirement. This happened just a couple of months ago, and I found out about it from other family members, but he still has connections with his colleagues on the force, and I know for a fact that if he wanted to, he definitely would have been able to bail my brother out. Besides, I think posting it on Facebook did a lot more damage to my brother's reputation, and that's exactly what I had wanted, so I don't really regret not calling the cops on him. I think I did the right thing in coming to Jackson, and what kind of drugs he was taking, I'm not really sure about that, but all I know is that none of what he was doing was legal. Not just drugs, but he's also involved in a lot of other shady things, because I know for a fact that he hasn't worked since his business flopped a couple of years back, and yet he has still managed to be able to pay rent and live in an apartment of his own. Of course, it's very likely that my parents have been supporting him financially, but even then, I'm sure that they haven't been giving him money to party, and his Instagram feed is just full of pictures of him living it up with his friends. I don't know exactly what he's involved in, but I know that it can't be anything good, because if he has been able to raise money for himself without working hard, I'm pretty sure he's doing something illegal and dishonest, and my dad has been helping him cover it up, so he's not really the honest and upright cop that he has been pretending to be for everyone else, and that's why I don't see any reason for me to take that post down and protect his reputation. They did have a valid point that they had tried to contact me several times in the past couple of years, but the reason that I had never accepted their attempts to contact me was because I had always known that for them my brother was more of a priority than me, and even in this current situation, it was the truth. They claimed that they had cut off, but still spoke to him so they could get me to take the post down, so they didn't really cut him off, and what they said to me was pointless. I was a bit confused at the time because I was feeling a lot of mixed emotions, but after reading the comments on my post, I realized that I didn't really have to take that post down. My family deserves every bit of the hate that they are getting right now. They have brought it on to themselves, and I'm not the bad guy in this situation in the slightest. So it's been 9 days now, and the post is still up. I got my car repainted already. I didn't think there was any point in waiting for my parents or my brother to cough up the money that they owed me, and besides, it was not about money for me in the first place. I think I have made that very clear, but in spite of that, my brother has not given up. Jackson keeps texting me again and again saying that he really is sorry and that he's ready to send me whatever amount I ask for, which is just another indicator that he's definitely involved in something shady, because otherwise, where is he getting that money from? Since my parents just told me that they have cut him off, I'm pretty sure